Good morning and welcome to Baptist for Liberty. We have a very exciting week planned. I'm looking forward to it. I think we're going to have at least 3 guests this week on a variety of subjects. I think it's very exciting and interesting. But today we're going to cover our news blitz and a couple of other important topics. So, our news blitz, we're going to start with Monday of last week, June 9th. We have South Carolina drops Common Core, and of course, the week before that we discussed certain states were dropping Common Core. In particular, we read the 10th Amendment's article on North Carolina dropping it. So, apparently North Carolina, South Carolina, and India have dropped Common Core. Okay, Tuesday, June 10th, we have some good news from an ongoing story that the New American has been covering. The headline reads, Justina Pelletier to be reunited with family. And I'm sorry if I mispronounced her last name. The story is about, after 16 months of fighting to regain custody of their teenage daughter due to disagreements between hospital staff on their daughter's diagnosis, Mr. and Mrs. Pelletier may finally be able to regain their parental rights. So 16 months ago, their daughter was diagnosed she'd already been diagnosed with one disease by a doctor at a different hospital, and she had an emergency and came to the second hospital, and the doctor said, "Oh no, you're over-medicating her. She actually is mentally retarded," or some such thing, and took her off of her regular medications. Well, by taking her off of her medications, she does appear to be mentally handicapped rather than physically handicapped, and so her condition has deteriorated under this hospital care, and the state granted this hospital custody of the child for 16 months. So finally, we may be seeing a close to this case with the happy ending of Mr. and Mrs. Pelletier regaining custody of their daughter. At the time of this article, despite the cheerful headline, there was still a potential that the judge might not grant them their daughter back. But I checked and there was no update, so I'm hoping that means the judge did go ahead and give them their daughter back. Alright, next we also have Oklahoma company markets bulletproof blanket for children's use in school shootings from benswan.com. It's a rather sad sign of the times we live in. I mean, on one hand, people are being inventive and coming up with things, but, I mean, wow, how wicked at times are we in that we have to even think about protecting small school children who still take naps at school with bulletproof blankets. Okay, moving on to June 11th, and we got quite a few headlines here. Tea Party wins massive victory, defeats House Majority Leader Eric Cantor in GOP. Now this one has been all over the mainstream media. It was a real surprise that Brett, I don't remember his full name. He just was this nobody knew, and he won the GOP nomination against Eric Cantor, who, is a longtime insider in the GOP. Whether or not he'll be able to defeat his Democrat opponent in November, we'll see. Also, in regards to that, a reporter named Katie Pavlich at townhall.com wrote an article. Cantor spent $168,637 on steakhouses, and Brett spent $122,793 on entire campaign. So, just to show in money the huge difference between these two campaigns. And I think that also goes to show how Cantor likes to spend his money. Spend it on the fat cats. So, yeah, no wonder why the people of, I think that was Virginia, decided they didn't want him. Also, we have Libertarians versus Conservatives by John Stossel. He wrote a short article at Town Hall discussing what topics of contention he'd be talking to on his program. I forgot the name of the guest he was going to have on this past weekend. He says, both libertarians and conservatives want to keep America safe. We differ on how best to do that. Most libertarians believe our attempts to create or support democracy around the world have made us new enemies and done harm as well as good. We want less military spending. Some conservatives respond to that by calling us isolationists, but we're not. I want to participate in the world. I just don't want to run it. I'm glad Americans trade with other countries, trade both goods and people. It's great we sell foreigners our music, movies, ideas, etc. And through dealing with them, we also learn from what they do best. On my TV show this week, former U.S. Ambassador to the UN, John Bolton, will tell me why my libertarian skepticism about the importance of a strong military presence, in quotation marks, is completely irrelevant to foreign policy decision making. Okay, and then also from Ben Swan. Ben Swan himself actually reported on this story. Sheriff Mack smeared by SPLC connected to Las Vegas shooters as part of his Truth in Media website project at benswan.com. I highly recommend checking out this article. The SPLC will put out a story and then they have bloggers connected to it to kind of spread it out, and then soon the mainstream media will, well, if they want to, they pick up on these kind of stories. So Constitutional Sheriff Richard Mack supports cop killing patriots? ? While those exact words have not yet been used, that is the narrative that is being pushed by the Southern Poverty Law Center and other media, as they have found the connection, in quotation marks, between two lunatic cop killers in Las Vegas and Sheriff Mack. The smear began on Monday when the Southern Poverty Law Center ran a story attempting to connect Sheriff Mack with Jared and Amanda Miller, the Las Vegas couple who embarked on a shooting spree Sunday that left 2 police officers dead. As we reported, Jared and Amanda reportedly turned their guns on themselves in a suicide pact. In all, 5 people, including the Millers, 2 police officers, and 1 innocent bystander, were killed. And at the very bottom of this report, they share a statement by the CSPOA, which is an organization that Sheriff Mack he began. And it says, the Constitutional Sheriffs and Peace Officer Association, CSPOA, all its members and staff extend our heartfelt condolences and sympathy to the families of Deputy Sheriffs Alan Beck and Igor Soldo, and also citizen Joseph Wilcox. The 2 deputies were ambushed by 2 lunatics in an unspeakable act of cowardice. Joseph Wilcox was an armed citizen who courageously tried to stop the suspects to save others. He was killed attempting to do so. The CSPOA has always condemned such senseless violence and advocate peaceful change and peaceful change only. There is never a time that such lawlessness is acceptable. We admire the men and women who wear the uniform and badge and the armed citizen defending his neighbors. Each time a cop dies in the line of duty, a piece of America dies at the same time. Thus our hearts go out to the families of these peace officers and to the Wilcox family also. We pray for each of them and for peace to return to America. There have been a few misleading media reports that have linked one of the killers, in this case, to the CSPOA. Neither of the shooters was a member, and neither had any affiliation whatsoever with the CSPOA, its members, or staff. And if you want to read the full story, which I highly recommend. You will find the link on our homepage. Okay. Let's see. We also have Republicans and Foreign Aid, an opinion piece by Lawrence M. Vance. That was a very strong one. Strong opinion. Of course, I've read a few different articles by Lawrence M. Vance, and he's not one to pull punches. Iraqi insurgents storm Mosul, reportedly seizing U.S. weaponry by Barry Danjian. I believe this was also at benswan.com. Yes, this is at benswan.com. Josh Cook writes, this exclusive scoop: we didn't give up 5 to get Bendel or Bergendahl. There's another deal in play, and this was a quote by a Navy SEAL that Josh Cook interviewed in regards to the prisoner swap between the U.S. government and the Taliban. Let's see, townhall.com shares this report by Night Watch on recent terrorist attacks. The Taliban declares war on Pakistan. While the title of this piece only mentions Pakistan, the short report also covers attacks in Cameroon and Nigeria as well. So this article posted at Town Hall, it covers, I think, 5 different terrorist attacks within those 3 countries over the course of 1 week. I think Nigeria was the one that popped up like 3 times on that. Thursday, June 12th, the Josh Tolley Show covers parents under investigation and baby is taken because they had home birth. So Josh Tolley is a radio talk show host, and occasionally he posts clips of his show onto YouTube, and this particular clip is about 8 minutes long, where he talks about this story that these parents, they decided that they wanted to have a home birth, but a few days after the birth, the baby had a fever, so they reluctantly decided, we'll go to the hospital to take care of this fever. But as soon as they went to the hospital and the people at the hospital found out that they did home birth, they decided that these parents were unfit, and again tried to take custody of this child, just like in the case we started off with about the teenage daughter taken away from her parents. The hospitals decide that they don't like something that parents are doing, they will take custody of the children. And Josh Tolley points out that this will get worse with the implementation of Obamacare, because under Obamacare, hospitals are given more and more power and authority over their patients. Another story from Thursday, Dave Bratt, a libertarian, ? His 23-year-old campaign manager is, and the media isn't happy. This story is by Michael Lotfi at benswan.com. So, Dave Bratt, again, he's that Tea Party upstart that really shook things up and has been taking a lot of headlines lately. So, a lot of people are connecting him with the libertarians and the liberty movement. So that's a very interesting one. They seem to know more about his staff members, in particular his 23-year-old campaign manager. Benswan did do a brief story on Dave Bratt, and they just covered a couple of points in David Bratt's biography, such as his education and career path so far, and that can give you some ideas. He's a businessman, that both what he went to school for and in practice. Okay, also Judge Andrew Napolitano publishes this warning: beware a beneficent government, at townhall.com, in which he talks about when a government says, we want to take care of you, that should be red flag right there. Government likes power. So Friday, June 13th, 3 Louisiana abortion clinics likely to close is the headline. Don't be fooled by this headline. The 2 bills that would be responsible for these possible closures, so they didn't actually happen, there are possible closures, actually work to entrench infanticide in the law, but make it safer for the mothers. Let us remember all life is precious, that of the mother and unborn child. This is a really brief story posted, I believe, in the New American, and it talks about these two bills getting passed in Louisiana. One is that abortion clinics have to be accessible to hospitals, because there have been a string of the mothers dying at abortion clinics due to bleeding and callous abortion clinic techniques. But of course, when you're going to go there to have your baby killed, expect some callousness there. And I don't want to sound like, well, these women deserve it, because like I said, all life is precious. But yeah, when you have nurses and doctors committed to making a living off of killing babies, they're going to be callous towards the mothers as well. The other bill, though, was on abortion clinics are not allowed to promote any materials for safe sex, condoms, or anything like that, because Planned Parenthood promotes this cycle of repeat customers. So this is supposed to be a family-friendly bill to make sure your teenagers aren't being targeted to be repeat customers. They're allowed to be first-time customers, and you don't necessarily have to know about it. But hey, at least they're not going to be repeat customers under this law. Well, they can't be marketed towards to be repeat customers. We'll put it that way. And finally, for Friday, we have Alex Newman of the New American Report, Rothschild crony capitalist summit plot against free markets. So this was a very strong opinion piece about a group meeting in Europe discussing, they act like they're talking about capitalism, but it's actually very state-controlled businesses. Talking about how you need more regulations and more monopolies to ensure the future. And actually, I was wrong when I said that was our last story. Our very last story for Friday was former Border Patrol agent, illegal immigration crisis contrived, and this is also from the New American. This was a good article. It raised some good points, but after I read it, I had quite a few more questions. So I sent a message to a friend of mine, Ferguson Hodgson. He's an editor at panam.com. In Panam, they cover news stories in Central America. And I asked him, hey, would you be willing to come onto our podcast? Or could you get me a connection with somebody to do a show about these kids traveling from El Salvador and Honduras through Mexico into Texas? Because I want to know, are they really running to Texas, or are they running from El Salvador and Honduras? That's one of my big questions. And in either case, where are the parents? What happened to the parents? And why would the parents send their children off on such a dangerous journey? There's more to the story other than American immigration policy. So, Lord willing, Tuesday night I will be doing an interview with a reporter from Pan Am, who is their El Salvador expert, and we'll be posting that story Wednesday morning. So, stay tuned and look forward to that. I'm very excited to be able to interview an El Salvador expert, reporter on this issue. Okay, and our last two stories come from Saturday, June 14th. Debt is No Salvation by Peter Schiff. Peter Schiff is a very vocal economist. He's an economist that is constantly ripping apart our fake capitalist system. Our system is built on debt, and this particular article of his is again pointing out, debt is not the answer to the problem of debt, personal lifestyle, or in the bigger picture of government. Okay, and our last one is The Almighty Mess in Iraq by Eric Margolis. I believe Eric Margolis was he's a longtime reporter. I think at one point he was a wartime correspondent. So in this one he is talking about what's going on in Iraq. Iraq has been in the news media as supposedly our troops are leaving. And as they leave, these other terrorist groups have been coming in and filling the void. And all the hours of training, the forces in Iraq, these very forces, they just lay down their guns and run. So all that money and time and effort in training them totally down the tubes, because they aren't standing up to defend their own countries against these terrorist organizations. They're just surrendering or running. Okay, and that's all for our news blitz, and I'm kind of surprised at how much time that took, because I actually had some other discussion topics I wanted to get to today. In particular, our Bible verse of the month for this issue. It took me quite a while to decide on it. Normally, every month, the newsletter, I pick kind of a central theme or idea that I want to focus on in a Bible verse to highlight that and make some points. And some months it's easier to pick out a verse, and other months it's really hard because just getting one verse encapsulates a very strong idea. So some of the verses I'd considered was Job, chapter 40, verse 7. And the Lord is talking in this verse to Job and says, "Gird up thy loins now like a man, I will demand of thee, and declare thou unto me." I thought that was a good one, where God is telling Job to man up. And our topic this month is manhood, biblical manhood. Some other verses was Galatians 6, verses 1 through 6. And of course this is too much to post because I normally only have like room for one or two verses maybe. But and I still felt like I should at least read these verses because I thought they were really good. Well, of course all scriptures are good, but in context and subject. It says, "Brethren, if a man be overtaken in a fault, ye which are spiritual, restore such an one in the spirit of meekness, considering thyself, lest thou also be tempted. Bear ye one another's burdens, and so fulfill the law of Christ. For if a man think himself to be something when he is nothing, he deceiveth himself. But let every man prove his own work, and then shall he have rejoicing in himself alone, and not in another. For every man shall bear his own burden. Let him that is taught in the word communicate unto him that teacheth in all good things." So all these verses, they would work pretty good individually. I think they work best, of course, together. So I just wanted to go ahead and share those. But the verse that we are going to go with this month for the newsletter's verse of the month is 1 Corinthians chapter 13, verse 11. "When I was a child, I spake as a child, I understood as a child, I thought as a child, but when I became a man, I put away childish things." So that's the verse we're going to go with this month. So I just wanted to share that with you. I was also going to read our forum questions and answers, but it doesn't look like I'm going to have enough time, so either I will cover that later this week, or you'll just have to wait to read them in the newsletter anyway. So some of the things, every once in a while, I want to read one or two articles that's going to be in the upcoming newsletter. Maybe just whet your appetite. Okay, well, it looks like that's it for today, so we'll read our Proverbs. And today, our proverb is chapter 16, in which King Solomon says, "The preparations of the heart in man, and the answer of the tongue is from the Lord. All the ways of a man are clean in his own eyes, but the Lord weigheth the spirits. Commit thy works unto the Lord, and thy thoughts shall be established. The Lord hath made all things for himself, yea, even the wicked for the day of evil. Every one that is proud in heart is an abomination to the Lord. Though hand join in hand, he shall not be unpunished. By mercy and truth iniquity is purged, and by the fear of the Lord men depart from evil. When a man's ways please the Lord, he maketh even his enemies to be at peace with him. Better is a little with righteousness than great revenues without right. A man's heart deviseth his way, but the Lord directeth his steps. A divine sentence is in the lips of the king, his mouth transgresseth not in judgment. A just weight and balance are the Lord's, all the weights of the bag are his work. It is an abomination to kings to commit wickedness, for the throne is established by righteousness. Righteous lips are the delight of kings, and they love him that speaketh right. The wrath of a king is as messengers of death, but a wise man will pacify it. In the light of the king's countenance is life, and his favor is as a cloud of the latter rain. How much better is it to get wisdom than gold, and to get understanding rather to be chosen than silver. The highway of the upright is to depart from evil. He that keepeth his way preserveth his soul. Pride goeth before destruction, and an haughty spirit before a fall. Better it is to be of an honorable spirit with the lowly, than to divide the spoil with the proud. He that handleth a matter wisely shall find good, and whoso trusteth in the Lord, happy is he. The wise in heart shall be called prudent, and the sweetness of the lips increaseth learning. Understanding is a wellspring of life unto him that hath it, but the instruction of fools is folly. The heart of the wise teacheth his mouth, and addeth learning to his lips. Pleasant words are as honeycomb, sweet to the soul, and health to the bones. There is a way that seemeth right unto a man, but the end thereof are the ways of death. He that laboureth for himself, for his mouth craveth it of him. An ungodly man diggeth up evil, and in his lips there is a burning fire. A forward man soweth strife, and a whisperer separateth chief friends. A violent man enticeth his neighbour, and leadeth him into the way that is not good. He shattereth his eyes to devise forward things, moving his lips he bringeth evil to pass. The hoary head is a crown of glory, if it be found in the way of righteousness. He that is slow to anger is better than the mighty, and he that ruleth his spirit than he that taketh a city. The lot is cast into the lap, but the whole disposing thereof is of the Lord.